For the Bible declares in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God through the pulling down of strongholds." In this chapter, Paul is defending his apostleship. In order to understand what he said in this verse, you have to understand that people had said, well, this same Paul is not very imposing looking. And in fact, his speech is not very powerful and his letters are very weighty and very strong, but his presence is very weak and his voice is not so good. Paul is writing to them and saying in defense of his apostleship, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. Notice, if you will, there are four most thought-provoking points that I'm going to leave with you in this text. The first thing that we see here is that there is a war that is going on. A lot of folk don't seem to know that a Christian is to engage in a warfare. And the Bible describes that type of warfare. When Paul wrote to a young preacher by the name of Timothy, he said, "This charge I commit unto thee, son Timothy, that thou by them mightest war a good warfare." He's saying, young preacher, you are in a battle. You are in a warfare, and it's not going to be a picnic. Paul wrote to this same preacher later on in 2 Timothy, and he told him to endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Now, what are soldiers for? Soldiers are just not to be on a parade. They're not to just carry a gun and fight, but soldiers are to engage in a warfare. Many of the Lord's people don't know what it's like to be in warfare. So not only do we need to understand that we are in a fight and a war is going on, but we have the weapons. Understand this. The Lord did not leave us without something to fight with. He says a Christian can be dressed up in an armor. When I read about these 7 great implements of this armor, I find only one place that is unprotected, and that is right in the small of our backs. You see, you don't need anything there if you're facing in the right direction. If you're not running, you don't need to worry about getting hit in that place. You see, when God puts the fighting spirit in us, we engage in battle. We don't run. So we have the weapons that the Lord has given unto us. And the third thing that we see is that these weapons are mighty through God. Let's just be honest. These are not ordinary days. Our enemy that we are fighting is not an ordinary enemy. Just ordinary human weapons will never win this victory. We have the same powerful weapons and the same mighty God today that Moses had when he won the victory from the whole Egyptian nation. We have the same mighty and powerful God that David slew Goliath with a slingshot and a smooth pebble from the brook. But God's power was all in that. I had rather have a slingshot and God than a mighty sword of Goliath and have to be dependent on the power of my own flesh. So not only do we know that there is a war that is going on, we also know that we actually have these weapons that God has given us, and that these weapons are mighty through God. But what we also see here is that we have the guaranteed victory. This is what I really love about this text this morning, sisterhood. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God, through the pulling down of stronghold. This is what he's saying. God is guaranteeing that if we use his weapons, we will win. They are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. I promise, First Washington, if you use them, and the things that will fall before you is what he's saying. They are mighty through God. And I'm so glad on today that victory is ours and victory is guaranteed. May God love you and may heaven smile upon you. Remember, I'm praying for each and every one of you during this crisis, And always remember that I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. God bless you, and may heaven smile upon you.